I'm Ian Constance. I'm Chief Exec of the Advanced Propulsion Centre. Many of you know that. Many of us know each other already. It's great to see you here. Let me start by extending a very, very warm welcome to the Advanced Propulsion Centre and to Warwick University today. I think I've got to start with the obligatory housekeeping. No fire alarms planned today. Last time some of you were here in January, we said there's no fire alarms planned. There weren't, but there was a fire alarm. You were told to go down to the APC building. I won't say, Rick, who gave you that instruction, which was wrong. The muster point is right outside this building in the front of the top end of the lake. I'm sure we won't need it. If we do, please leave in an orderly fashion, and the APC staff will tell you where to go. Toilets, go out of here, go back on yourself, and they're sort of over there. For some reason, we can't use the door on this side of the auditorium. You can. Okay, well, that's where they are. And refreshments, many of you have already availed yourself of the coffee. There'll be a bit more later, back down in the recharge area, which is down the corridor at the back. We will be recording this session. We will be taking photographs. So if anybody's got any problem with that, please let one of us know, and we'll see if we can deal with that in the most effective way. So I have to say, talking about toilets, my overwhelming sense at this point is one of relief. I'm relieved. I'm relieved because graduation's taking place at Warwick University right now. Which means the place is full of students, parents, and cars, and you found your way here, you parked, and you're here, so it's great to see you. But in more relief that on Sunday, I'm sure you all know, the government announced their new automotive plan, support plan, which is called DRIVE35, and that's what we're here to talk about. And frankly, if they hadn't announced it on Sunday, we'd have been stood here twiddling our fingers. We wouldn't have known what to talk about. We'd have found something, I'm sure. But anyway, huge, huge relief. And fundamentally, a relief that we were able to get this massive program of support over the line with DB2 support, with Innovate UK support, and most importantly, with all the support from you and the broader automotive sector and the automotive industry at large. The plan for Drive 2035 is to deploy, as I said, £2.5 billion over the next 10 years. And the vast majority of that over the next 5 years. There's 500 million of R&D in the second part of that 10-year cycle. And frankly, I think I have never known, and I'm sure most of us here have never known a time when government spending has been so constrained, with so much going on, so many difficult things and challenges to meet. So for us to have collectively created that case, to make the case and to have the commitment for £2.5 billion over the next 10 years is really a fantastic thing. It's a great thing, and one that we should celebrate. Now, we all know, I think most of us will know, that the automotive sector, as well as the government having huge pressures on it, the automotive sector has got huge pressures on it as well at this point in time. Never before have we seen so much disruption. A transition to zero-emission vehicles, a transition that frankly is so hard to predict what is going to happen, the way it's going to happen next. Pressure from disruptive elements, from vehicles, low-cost vehicles coming in from Asia, particularly from China, and the same for batteries and those key components supporting ZEV, that zero-emission vehicle transition. Further disruption when it comes to digital tools, digital advances, how to deploy them into manufacturing, into R&D, and into vehicles themselves. The whole software-defined vehicle conundrum. What is it? How do we do it? And where's it going to end? All of these things coming at us connected autonomous mobility. Where are we going next with automation and things like that? These are challenges that the like we've never seen before, but they just don't get any easier. So of course, there is a big case that we can make, and we have made successfully to government, that we need that support. We need the support in that transition. And it goes further than that, doesn't it? Because how are we going to get critical materials? How are we going to develop beyond a zero emission vehicle into a really sustainable circular economy play, which gets us the materials that we need, that brings everything in the system together and does it without the all-important carbon emissions that we're trying to avoid. So it's a really difficult time for us. It's a really difficult time for government. And so we have to now, as we start deploying this £2.5 billion, we have to look for the very best innovation, the innovations that are going to really accelerate that ability for people to access those zero emission vehicles. So the things that are going to reduce cost, improve performance, improve accessibility of those vehicles. Our job at the APC is going to be to work with you to bring forward the very best of those innovations, find and help you develop the very best of those innovations so you can get them funded, so we can help you de-risk the introduction of those, and then build that next generation supply chain with the next iteration of the automotive transformation fund, which is the capital bit. Much of what you see today, and the team are going to take you through all the details, much of what you see is going to be an evolution of existing programs. Collaborative R&D, large-scale demonstrators that help people put things in front of people that get investment and get excitement around products. The SME, the small and medium enterprise kind of programs that look for innovators and help to bring them into the automotive world with some really cool innovations around some of the things, like those disruptors that I just talked about. So around digitalization, around AI, around software, and around the circular economy, to name a few. The revolution really comes when we talk about scale up. Since I've been here, and I've been here almost 10 years, can't believe it, but here I am. And I've been talking about the difficulty it is for scaling businesses from innovation to suppliers. And unfortunately, we're not quite ready to announce that in all its glory, but we are working hard on that, and we'll give you a bit of a flavour of that as well. And that's really where the revolution starts. So thank you all for your support over the last 10 years. Together, we have delivered tens of thousands of UK high-value jobs in automotive. We've delivered products that have abated over 400 million tonnes of carbon dioxide and literally billions of follow-on investment. That's the value for money that has made this whole thing really attractive to government. We've got to double down on that. We've got to do more in the next 10 years. And I look forward to working with you to bring that innovation forward, to help you get the best value out of it. I look forward to your continued success. So thank you very much. Let's just have a quick look at the agenda. I'm not going to walk you through. There's a lot on this. There's an important refreshment break here, and then after we finish, we'll go over to the APC building. There'll be some wonderful sandwiches, the greatest sandwiches in the world. I'm sure we can enjoy some networking when we get there. Great agenda. We're keeping everything fairly short, so nobody should send you to sleep. I hope it's quite warm in here already. And without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Paolo Favino. Paolo is the head of the auto unit at DBT. And this is an overused phrase, worked tirelessly. But this guy has really, for the last 2 years, worked tirelessly to bring this program together, to take it through all those multiple layers of approval in government. And Paolo, you've been a great support. You've been a great friend to us. And we look forward to getting this thing moving. Thank you very much, and welcome to you.
I was promised there's going to be pork pies, so I love pork pie. In Italy, we don't have. So I think I'm starting to be a bit overwhelmed, I have to say, because when you work on something, you have to believe that it's going to happen, because basically it's your job. If you don't believe it's going to happen, it's not going to happen. When it happens, you're like, I didn't realize that. Because the thing is, there was so much people telling us it's not going to happen. It's not possible. You're not going to get the money. There's no money available. We got the money. But a lot of other people did not. And we have been blessed by the scientific knowledge, the technical knowledge, the industry knowledge of the APC. We're able to tap into that and bring that into discussion with the Treasury, with our ministers. The Prime Minister is a big supporter of DRIVE35. So we have something here that a lot of other sectors do not have, right? So this should be a source of, we should be really proud of it. So, and the thing that really makes me proud is, so I was told that I need to stick to the policy line. So I think someone is filming me here. I'll try to stick to the policy line, but don't film me. The good thing about this program is that because of that, a few more companies will survive, will thrive, a few more people will get to keep a job, they will have a better job, and they will have this job in the UK, right? So, and this is the whole point. This government, it's all about growth. We are all about growth for working people, for the country, and make sure that we do that as part of a long-term industrial policy. We want this to be part of a long-term plan for the UK, a 10-year industrial strategy that is going to touch every single aspect of our economy. So what this presentation does, and that's basically the beginning of this event, is for me to give you an overview of the context for DRIVE35, which is essentially a long-term industrial policy. An industrial policy which is a 10-year plan focusing on a lot of different things: cutting electricity costs, promoting trade, strengthening our economic security, boosting innovation with a record 86 billion in UK R&D, driving billions more for private investors. This is unheard of. Then at the same time, it's not just grant, it's also looking at how we increase access to finance using, yes, obviously expanding the British Business Bank, UKF, but also using our National Wealth Fund. The big innovation of DRIVE35 is that we provide a massive program of grant support alongside a much more significant additional program of access to finance, because you need to build your product, but you also need to build your business, right? Obviously, skills, we want to make sure that everything we do on skills support all the rest. This government is big on devolution. We want to invest in our community. We want to boost site development investment zone and empowering local leaders, which is why I will mention our focus on a pilot for clustering EV manufacturing in the Northeast and here in the West Midlands. Then cutting the admin cost of regulation by 25% and planning reform. I'm not going to talk tax because not what Treasury is going to be upset. And we're going to do this across 8 different sectors, our priority sectors: advanced manufacturing, creative industries, life science, clean energy industries, defense, digital technologies, professional and business services, and financial services. And we have published a dedicated sector plan for each one of those sectors. The advanced manufacturing plan has a bold vision and a bold target. The vision is that by 2035, we want the UK to be recognized as the best place in the world to start, grow, and invest in advanced manufacturing, sticking to the policy. Our ambition is to near double the annual business investment in the sector from 21 billion to 39 billion by 2035. Now, this is going to be done based on a very comprehensive plan focusing on 4 areas. First of all, reforming the business environment. Already mentioned building resilience by looking at the supply side, so electricity costs and stuff like that. Investing in R&D, skill reform. Then we're going to prioritize within advanced manufacturing a series of frontier industry. Automotive, first one. Batteries, aerospace, space, advanced material, and agritech. We're going to do that with a focus on local areas, how we build, how we leverage local competitive advantages in different parts of the UK. So we're going to invest massively in investment zones, focus on advanced manufacturing, and we're going to explore EV manufacturing clusters, starting with a pilot in the Northeast and in the West Midlands. We're going to look at how to build fully integrated local supply chains, which are going to spark economies of scales, greater productivity, faster innovation cycles, skill spots, and ultimately resilience. And we're going to do all of this building on our strategic partnership between the government and the sector. And in our case, the strategic partnership is the Automotive Council. We want to make sure the Automotive Council is front and center of this transition and the implementation of this industrial policy. Why automotive? So we are clear that automotive is very much the driver for this transformation and the driver for economic growth in the UK. So all those stats, I got a lot of analysts to check all those stats to make sure I'm not talking rubbish. But basically, the point is that this industry is dynamic, diverse, rapidly evolving. It is the second largest in Europe and a massive investor in R&D. This is why all the new technologies that we support, develop, and implement in auto then gets implemented across auto, a lot of other sectors, marine, aerospace, right? So this is a driver of innovation and a driver of growth. And we have a very specific target. We want to increase the volume of vehicles made in the UK to over 1.3 million cars and commercial vehicles by 2035. We are not here just to provide grants to help with market failures. We have a plan. We want a new industry that is very much front and center of our industrial strategy. And this is why, this is why our sector plan introduced a series of commitments to the sector, which taken together, here's not the screen here, taken together, they represent the biggest set of announcements in over a decade. We haven't seen something like that since the launch of the APC in 2013. So we have the DRIVE35 grant funding initiative. We have EV supply chain investment by the National Wealth Fund. National Wealth Fund has as a priority to support the development of an EV supply chain in the UK. We are going to launch an automotive technology strategy in 2026, which is going to set the scene and the priorities for government intervention. We're going to develop a partnership with industry, but as we have a 10-year R&D budget, we really need to make sure that there is a long-term plan for the UK, right? We're going to look at building international technology partnerships with our trade partners, leveraging our IP to maximize the amount of foreign direct investment in the UK. Domestically, as I mentioned, we will cluster EV manufacturing. But it's not just that. There's also an additional 150 million to 2030 on CAM technologies. And CAM and zero emission technologies are coming together. Ian mentioned our focus on software, right? We know that software, according to The Economist, is going to be 50% of OEM's profit by 2050. Right? We have a data ZEV mandate. We want to keep our ambition, but we want to provide flexibility to manufacturers as well. We're going to provide up to 99 million to 2030 to support SME via Advanced Made Smarter program, 452 million to 2030 on battery R&D on top of DRIVE35, and 15.6 billion pounds for transport for city regions. Again, devolution. This government is really big on devolution. We want to empower local leaders and we want to drive demand for UK-based buses manufacturing. Now, DRIVE35, and I think this is my last slide, is very much at the center of this plan that I mentioned before, right? DRIVE35 builds on our experience and track record of the Advanced Propulsion Centre R&D program and the Automotive Transformation Fund, with a view to simplify the funding offer, accelerate the rate at which support is provided, both on the capital side and the R&D side, maximize the focus of the program. Our Secretary of State is keen on delivering measurable impact and ensure longevity in the government offer, because we need long-term certainty that the UK is the best place to invest for automotive manufacturing. Essentially, we took all the different competitions and programs across the APC and ATF. We revisit them, review them, brought them together, and the team will provide details on that into 3 different pillars. Innovation grants, which is essentially R&D grants focused, are getting new innovation as close as possible to technology readiness. New innovation as in a product or a process. Scale-up grant, this is R&D grant, and Josh will explain how that works more in detail, which are about getting that technology-ready innovation as close as possible to commercial readiness by scaling up the manufacturing process via real-world pilots, real-world demonstrations, which are focused on building a raft of homegrown prospects, credible prospects for capital investment, which could be from industry, because someone in industry may decide, that's a good idea, I like it, I want to buy it, I want to work with them. Or from government, by the transformation grants, which build on the Automotive Transformation Fund to industrialize at scale this new innovation. Talking about gigafactories, electric drive units, and all the rest. Big innovation there is that we're bringing vehicle assembly in scope of the transformation grants, or the Automotive Transformation Fund, essentially building a one-stop shop for automotive innovation and industrialization. So I think that's it. I will leave it to Rick to talk about the role of the UPC as the one-stop shop, the front door to the whole thing.
Very much, Paolo, and also Ian. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Rick Adams. I'm the Innovation Delivery Director at the APC and also Zensit, which I'll touch on shortly. Well, hopefully it came across already. As it says here, we are very proud to continue to be the nominated partner to deliver DRIVE35 for the government. It's been a long road since 2013 when the APC was first formed. At that point, actually, electrification wasn't really even the topic of the day. Decarbonisation, yes. Electrification was not the immediate focus. So we've come a long way, and that's where I'd like to start. So in 2013, the P1 was revolutionary. Still is, right? I worked on it, so I have to say that. But look at the size of the 4.7 kilowatt hour battery 12 years ago. I mean, it's, you know, think how much capacity you'd fit in that space now. The Renault Zoe was launched. It cost £13,000. It's hard to imagine now. We've come a very long way. This story has got a little bit more challenging, right? And to touch on what Ian said, part of this next 10-year journey is, how do we get back to the point where electrification is truly accessible? How do we accelerate people's adoption of the technology? And it's through the types of innovations that come from hypercars and the most extreme use of our technology, right down through the whole supply chain. How do we make really, really exciting, credible, cost-effective utilitarian transport for the masses? As Ian said, he's stolen the thunder slightly. We've done quite a lot since 2013, though, right? 59,000 jobs. There's 1 million vehicles using APC-funded technology. I mean, that sort of sounds like we're taking the credit. You guys did that, right? We might have helped a bit, but actually, the people in this room have done that. Huge investment, lots of CO2. But actually, the numbers at the top are the things which are really exciting, and this is part of the focus for where we go for the next 10 years. 614 different project partners that we've had over the last 12 years, over 350 projects. But even despite the high numbers in this room today, there's a whole bunch of people who haven't yet been able to benefit from the support that's available. They haven't been able to benefit from the collaboration and the working together that you can achieve. And I'll be honest, one of the main reasons, or a big reason for me, that we bring you guys together is so you can talk. Because somewhere in this room will be the sparks of some of the most exciting future collaborations, which can really, really drive the industry forward. So where are we as the industry then? I said, we've come a long way. And there's, been a bit of talk of scale up already. And yes, lots of you will be in businesses which are trying to scale up. Where are we as an industry in the UK? I think we're still kind of here, right? Lots of businesses are still here. We've come a long way, but actually, if we're going to get back to or achieve 1.3 million vehicles manufactured in the UK, we still got a bit of this to do. And for those who are trying to do it, it's really scaling up is a really, really hard challenge. And so that's why, as I touched on, Josh is going to talk to you about how we hope to be able to help you in that area. But we recognise that we are still growing. There's lots of growth still to happen, which is why we can't ignore the type of support that we've been providing for the last 10 to 12 years. That really important sort of ground up new innovations from, startups, spin outs, micro businesses, right through, prototyping, collaborative demonstrators, and collaboration projects to deliver commercial product. So we need to continue to support here while building for scale in the future. Broken it now. So how do we, gosh, I've really broken it now. So how do we do that? Well, I've stolen this slide from a presentation that some good friends of ours gave a couple of years ago. Diversity. Well, the reality is we've always been technology agnostic at the APC. Yes, we've got some scope, we've got some eligibility, but we don't see a one-size-fits-all solution, right? The same electric drive doesn't work for every vehicle. The same battery chemistry doesn't work for every vehicle. Nature tells us that diversity is essential for survival. Not all plants and animals are the same. We're not all the same. So we need to take that mentality into how we fund and support projects, because while we've had great diversity for the past 12 years, we recognise that there are areas and disruptions in the industry which all of you are facing that perhaps we haven't been tapping into. And we'll come back to some of those a little bit later on in the presentations. But our commitment today is that this new DRIVE35 programme allows us to support you with a greater breadth of diversity and the types of technical challenges that you face as you go forward. And we're going to do that through the DRIVE35 programme, which is handily depicted in this lovely diagram. So hopefully you've all seen this already at some point. But the purpose of this diagram is firstly to show, the names of the products that you're going to apply for to get your funding. But also there's a growing sense of scale, which is inversely depicted here. But actually it's about where the net is cast. So SMEs and startups, etc., down to mobilise, got to cast the net really wide, because we don't know where the next really exciting innovations are going to come. And as you move up, we're trying to reduce the risk and increase the focus. So by the time we're supporting things through capital at the ATF, it's a surefire hit. That's really what we're trying to achieve. We want to support putting down roots and volume manufacture in the UK. And all of these steps in between are that journey from great seed of an idea right through to the deployment of a huge gigafactory, hopefully making tens of gigawatt hours of capacity of batteries, and all our products are available. So where do we fit in? Well, hopefully, again, many of you know us, as the APC, but for those that don't, or as a reminder, we're not just about funding. Our role here is not just to deploy grant. There's lots of great places you can go and find grant. What we can offer you is a much more holistic support. Firstly, bringing you together, helping you to find the collaborations, helping you to build the projects which can really be successful. We're really tapped into investment. It's a really important thing. Paolo mentioned that, right? Seeking how do you achieve the investment that's beyond the grant, because the grant doesn't pay for everything, right? Again, most of you know that. You've got to at least match funds. So how do we support that? Bringing you together with investors, understanding the investment landscape and how you might access that capital. And as Paolo touched on, expanding that offer now to include things like the National Wealth Fund. Lots of expertise to help, right? Help you understand the problems that are faced. And my colleague Hadi is going to be up next to talk about some of the work that we do to try and shape the opportunity, give you the idea of where the UK can win, and to provide consultancy level reports to help you to build out your evidence portfolio for seeking internal approval to get through the bid process to get projects. We try to help you spend the money really well. Again, another big part of what we do. We don't just hand over some cash and then hope that, you know, somewhere at the end of it, you maybe have had a successful project. We are in, we've got skin in the game. We want your projects to be successful. So we sit with you. We try to help. If you've got problems, we've got a team of people there to try and help you solve them. And of course, you know, back to the foundation of why we started, decarbonisation, supporting all of these initiatives to deliver ultimately the environmental gains and benefits that we started from. Yes, growth is the order of the day now, but we never lose sight of the importance of the environmental underpinnings. And just to touch on before I finish up, Paolo talked about CAM Pathfinder, and I mentioned Zenzik. So Zenzik is the APC's sister brand. We do the same stuff for the connected and automated mobility world as we do for the decarbonisation world. And as Paolo said, if we see these worlds converging, the opportunities for you guys who may have crossover technologies, crossover projects, is we can support you on both connected and automated mobility through Pathfinder, and of course through DRIVE35 on the decarbonisation journey. So if that sparks any thoughts, then come and grab us and we can have a chat about it. So on that note, I'd love to hand over to Hadi, who's our head of tech trends, to take you through some of that value add work that we do. Thank you very much.
Morning, everyone. Thank you, Rick. I would like to go back to Rick's final slide to say that, reiterate the fact that APC's role is not only about providing funding. We also provide insights, foresights, forecasts, support automotive council community, and leverage expertise and knowledge from this community, from automotive industry in the UK, to position the UK as the best place for automotive supply chain investment in the UK. I'm Hadi Mostarzadeh. I head up technology trends team at APC, who is behind the knowledge-based portfolio. On our website, you can access all of our insights, foresights, and reports. We put them into these 5 main categories. The first one, which you're all familiar with, you have all contributed into that. Yourself and your colleagues and your organizations have been part of the journey over the past 18 months. The automotive council roadmaps, which we published from last year, and I'm going to touch on that in a little bit more details in a moment. We also do this value chain mapping exercise, looking into strategic technologies for automotive industry, breaking them down into individual steps for manufacturing them, for production of those technologies and those systems going low emission vehicles, from batteries to power electronics to electric machines to hydrogen. We provide regular series of reports and insights and foresights on key strategic technologies. And we also reflect on some of the cross-cutting technologies. Mentioned software control systems and all of these cross-cutting enablers for all of those technologies, life cycle impact, cycling capabilities for those technologies. Another important item on our portfolio is our automotive industry quarterly demand report. We publish every quarter, and we basically provide figures and data on the latest state of play in the automotive industry globally, looking into European market and UK market. And we provide data in terms of demand for different parts of the different elements of the vehicle, from batteries to electric vehicles to and then trickle materials level. We update these figures every quarter. These days we should probably do it every month or even every week with the very fast pace of change in the landscape, tariffs, regulatory frameworks coming to market on a very regular basis these days. And then we work with our government colleagues and with automotive industry and academia to provide bespoke analysis on key mobility trends. So I'm going to move on and talk a little bit more about automotive council roadmaps and build on that around the technology scope and the strategic technologies identified as a result of these roadmaps. So the Automotive Council roadmaps, it's developed via a consensus building process. As I said, one of our roles at APC is leveraging the expertise and the knowledge of the automotive community and ecosystem in the UK. And Automotive Council roadmaps is a prime example of that, where we brought all of you together, the whole automotive ecosystem together to develop these roadmaps, defining and identifying key trends and drivers for strategic technologies going into zero-emission vehicles. And we covered it across the whole sort of vehicle segments, from passenger cars to bus and coach to commercial vehicles, HGVs, non-road mobile machineries. So last year in September, we published 2 system-level roadmaps covering mobility of people and mobility of goods, and then published 6 underpinning technology roadmaps, looking into batteries, electric motors, power electronics, hydrogen technologies, light-weight technologies, and of course, internal combustion engines, supporting some of those vehicle segments I mentioned. And on all of those roadmaps, we reflected on all of these cross-cutting enablers and themes, visualization, software-defined vehicles, software and control systems to some extent, materials and manufacturing, circularity of materials, and again, touched on energy and infrastructure on system level roadmap. Then, as a follow-up step, we are now developing a series of reports called Industry Challenges and Innovation Opportunities reports on all of those technology roadmaps, looking into UK supply chain capabilities. Just a reminder, the scope for Automotive Council roadmaps has always been global trends and drivers. Now we are putting them into the context of what it means for the UK supply chain and for the UK automotive. Where are the capabilities? What are the priorities? And then defining the opportunities after that for the UK investment in innovation, R&D, and so on and so forth. So we are providing these reports as a follow-up step to Automotive Council roadmaps to inform. We published the first one of these reports 7 weeks ago, early June. And then we're going to publish the next one, which is on power electronics, in a few weeks' time. Another follow-up step to Automotive Council roadmaps is defining and informing technology strategy from Automotive Council experts. So historically, these strategic technologies emerged out of the roadmap learnings and roadmap development process, which provides a kind of visual framework to map strategic automotive technologies and to simplify messaging and communication of those strategic technologies to the broader community in the UK and to our global partners, and showcase the capabilities and the key areas we would like to focus on in the UK. They've been used in several different ways in our programs and within the broader automotive ecosystem by you guys, guiding collaboration, prioritization, R&D and innovation focus areas being identified through this technology petals, as it was called. And as I said, I mentioned that we also always covered and reflected on some of the cross-cutting enablers for all technologies. This is a version we used for the past 4 or 5 years, and now we are in the, we've updated them as a result of Automotive Council Roadmap 2024, and we basically did a lot of consultation, a lot of workshops, and finally it's approved by the Automotive Council Steering Group and the main council about 3-4 weeks ago, Ben. So it's approved, the wordings and the strategic technologies is now finalized. We are still working on the design process for this, but we basically put them into these 3 main categories: enablers and capabilities, which where we cover skills, workforce, enabling infrastructure, digitalization and AI for production and for productivity. Then manufacturing supply chain competitiveness, which is quite important and sitting in the middle. And then those on vehicle technologies, propulsion systems and vehicle efficiency, which you all are familiar with, electric motors, power electronics, hydrogen fuel cell, ICE technologies, all of them. Connected automated mobility and ADAS, and a kind of new area we are now focusing on. It's becoming a trend and it's becoming an opportunity across the whole automotive industry globally, and we recognize that, which is software-defined vehicle, electrical and electronics architecture. So this is just a bigger picture. Alex is going to talk about more details of what's in the scope for our competitions, for our current programs, and what it looks like in DRIVE35. But I just wanted to share with you the picture. So finally, our knowledge base is leveraging your expertise and is built based on your knowledge and your support. We always appreciate that. We always come to you for validation of our thought process, for validation of our reports, and we always grateful for your support for that. Please use our insights, foresights, roadmaps to define your project's value add. And if you need any help with any of those, if you would like to have deep dive on any of those reports or roadmaps, alongside our business development team and our products team, we are more than happy to provide support and take you through more details when you need. Thank you.
Right, so we launched the program on Sunday. On Monday, we opened the first set of competitions for how you will actually be able to access funding. So I want to just talk about a couple of the products that were launched on Monday, demonstrate and collaborate, and my colleague Josh will talk also a little bit more later about Scale Up Fund. So go the right way first. What are we talking about? So in the ladder that this slide that Rick presented, the funding priorities, we're talking about demonstrate and collaborate. Now, I've spoken to a couple of people this morning. This is a new program, right? But I fully appreciate for industry, all of you that have been dealing with the APC and funding over the last 13 years, you also need a bit of a translation into what was the funding kind of areas and the support mechanisms we had before, and how do they look in the new world. So I'm going to touch a little bit on that. What I want to talk about today is this demonstrate and collaborate. So these are the 2 competitions open now. You can access those through, if you go to our website, you can get the links through to the Innovation Funding Services portal, where you can see those and you can see the detailed scope and eligibility on there. They're both closing 1st of October. So yeah, hopefully you're not all away for too long in the summer and you can get in to access those. Okay, let's introduce Collaborate first. So up to £25 million in match funding. And the aim of this competition is around collaborative R&D projects that develop, design, and enable the manufacture of technologies which target post-project commercialization. So these are big collaborative projects, and we want to end this at the late stage TRL, getting products ready to go into commercialization. And then our demonstrate funding. So demonstrate product is up to £1.5 million of match funding. So that's from £500,000 to £1.5 million of match funding. Now these can be individual or collaborations. And we're looking to leave you with a product or process demonstrator that gives you increased capability so you can go to your customers, whether they're your internal customers, so you need to get buy-in internally in the business, or whether that's your external customers. So you have something tangible to show them that is on the journey to getting towards that commercialization investment to take that R&D to the next stage. So that's an overview of the two products. I'm also going to go into the scope, because some of the things that Hadi touched on earlier, you're going to see how they go into a wider scope than anything that we've had before in APC products. Now, before we get into the new and increased scope, because it can be kind of daunting to see all these new areas, let's just take it all back to what the funded objectives and aims are. And that comes back to the stuff that Paolo was talking about before. So we're all about growth. So we are looking for growth, transition, and resilience in the automotive supply chain, contributing to the strategic aims and priorities. So that's the things that Hadi was talking about with the Auto Council. Now, obviously, you'll be relieved to know that all of those things are included in our scope. So that's all fine. Delivering on vehicle technologies or the manufacturing capabilities. And again, coming back to that central pillar that Hadi just showed from the Auto Council around manufacturing capability. And targeting post-project commercialization. So any project that comes through, we are looking to make sure that has a solid route to market, right? We want these things to be going forward into commercialization. Obviously, with the level of, there's always a certain level of risk in innovation and what we're trying to do. And that also comes back to the other point on innovation. We want innovative projects. So we're always thinking about the innovation that gives you the strategic advantage you need to be able to take your projects, your products and processes and services through into commercialization. And again, creating and safeguarding high value skilled jobs in the UK. That's what we're talking about, high value skilled jobs in the UK. Whether we're exporting, great. Whether we're using the products domestically, great. But we want to anchor either those high value manufacturing jobs or those R&D centres of excellence that we have in this country. We have a lot of those. So it's manufacturing and R&D skills. Right, now onto the new scopes. So trying to do a little bit of that translation thing here. I'm going to just go straight into this bit about piloting these new themes and just what that means. So firstly, the important thing is all of the themes will all be assessed equally. So don't see the word piloting and be scared or put off by that. But what I want to talk about is piloting is these are, I think if anything we've learned in the last 13 years is that the industry changes. There's always a semiconductor crisis. There's just something else. A ship gets stuck in the Suez Canal. And with these new areas, we're going in quite broad at the moment. So the scope is quite broad. I think things we could adapt and change as we go through the next 5 years. And I think we'd be mad not to change and adapt those things with industry as priorities and things shift. So it's just to say that we're there. We might tweak things as we go along, but don't worry too much about that, and everything will be assessed fairly. Now, coming back to sort of APC of old, the last 13 years, so big focus on the zero emission vehicle technologies and the kind of the petal diagram that Hadi shared earlier. We've always supported manufacturing productivity and competitiveness through supporting and funding those zero emission vehicle technologies. You know, how many of our late stage projects produce a pilot line or a scale up line? And from software defined vehicles and electrical architecture point of view, we have had lots of projects that have done automotive software, particularly around those zero emission vehicle technologies again. But now we're bringing these really into the forefront. So opening up manufacturing competitiveness and productivity to the vehicle manufacturer and across the wider supply chain, so outside of the core zero emission vehicle technologies. And from a software-defined vehicle, electrical architecture, automotive software perspective, really opening that up. And I'm going to touch on a bit more of the detailed scope for each one of these areas so that you really get an understanding of what's there. But first of all, just to reiterate, continued widespread support for the zero emission vehicle technologies. And not just the technologies and making the technologies, but across the whole life cycle. So from the raw materials all the way through validation, verification, design, manufacturing, reuse, energy. So we provide a broad spectrum of support. And I think it was the last event we had, I gave a little speech on digitalization versus automotive software. And this is to emphasize that, you know, using digitalization as that enabling tool across all aspects of the life cycle of those products as well. We've got a little asterisk on internal combustion engines. So just to emphasize this, for off-highway, non-fossil fuel internal combustion engines. So zero, you know, what we're trying to do is a transition of the off-highway industry. Now into manufacturing competitiveness. So what do we mean here? So using R&D innovation, so the collaborate and demonstrate funds are R&D funds. Josh is going to talk a little bit later about scale up, and then we've also got stuff on the transformation, which are capital funds. So this is R&D innovations to improve the efficiency and productivity and competitiveness of manufacturing plants that exist in this country and the wider supply chains going into them. And this is so that you can use the innovation strengths that we have in the country to make our manufacturing plants competitive with sister plants, with other global plants and other competitors. And also lowering embedded carbon emissions in the manufacturing process. So using things like the digital tools, lean principles, so waste reduction, circularity in processes. And it's important to stress, we're talking here about manufacturing competitiveness of the processes around manufacturing the vehicles. So the infrastructure side of manufacturing plants is not in the scope, right? Talking about the processes to make the vehicles or the systems and the associated supply chain with that. And I think that's the big change, the big shift in this level of funding and where we're going with it. So it could be, you know, things like certain processes that are very energy intensive. So innovations around how you can save and recycle and reuse energy in those processes. So quite a wide range of areas that are available to support, and we just encourage you to come and talk to us about that. And then into software-defined vehicles. I mean, whether or not you actually like or even agree with the term software-defined vehicles, right? Let's just say automotive software for now. But we're looking across supporting the hardware side. So this could be high-performance compute and microprocessing. I mean, and the platforms associated with that, and the way that we have some incredible companies in the UK that are doing this, and it's truly a growth area and an export potential growth area for for us all here. So whether it's the compute and the safety and cybersecurity that goes with those compute platforms, great. Control units. So if we're going to go from 200 control units on a vehicle down to 10, 15, what happens to those people that are manufacturing the PCBs, the enclosures, the connectors that are based in the UK currently? So this could be innovation funding around supporting those people to understand how the industry is going to shape and change. And then into things like the networking of vehicles. So yeah, or anything associated with the Ethernet protocols. How do you reduce copper content, weight reduction that can come with that as well? And then onto the software platform. So the software platform across the vehicle effectively. So hardware-based application layers, operating systems, offboard and cloud, asterisk that, because again, as I said with the manufacturing thing, if we think about infrastructure, this isn't funding for Amazon Web Services to put up a load of server racks somewhere that can help support cloud. It's about the software that is then associated with the vehicle and the operation of the vehicle. So it can be offboard things. It can be things like digital twin in the cloud, you know, how those some of the compute processes that need to happen offboard, right? And then but ultimately come back to the vehicle level. And then yeah, controls, cybersecurity. That's a big thing for the industry. We can support innovations in that space. I think there's still a lot of road to go on that. And then from a tool chains perspective, so how do we get software iterated faster onto vehicles with the safety, with the quality that it needs to? So that could be things like hill sill innovations. You know, how do you enable the transition and enable manufacturers to keep pace with the global market? So I think that's it from me for now. But come and talk to us. If you have any questions on the new scope, talk to myself or one of the business development team at lunch. And yeah, look forward to hearing about some of the exciting projects and innovations that we can have in the space. Thank you.
Great. So I just wanted to spend a few minutes just talking about how APC funding, and hopefully in the future, DRIVE35, has enabled to really deliver for Wrightbus, which Paolo was saying in terms of driving the future of zero emission buses. You know, this program has been instrumental over the years. So I just wanted to bring it to life a little bit. Obviously, afterwards, feel free to ask any additional questions. And now also, I'm the ESG director. I'm not an advanced manufacturing expert. So obviously, I can put you in touch with the right team if you have any additional questions. So first of all, for those of you who are not familiar with Wrightbus, the company itself is long-standing, but I think what becomes very interesting is that from being put in liquidation in 2019 when it was owned by the Wright family, it was bought by Joe Bamford as of the JCB empire, and we really have gone through a massive transformation, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, going from over 95% of diesel buses now in 2019 to over 95% zero emission buses now. So it's an extraordinary transfer. You know, it really shows what this funding can deliver. We are based in Northern Ireland and have 2,000 zero emission buses on the road. And I think the other point that's really important, and again, Paolo, what you were saying about the industrial strategy, clearly for every job that we create and through Wrightbus, and increasingly there is an international expansion as well. But for every job that we create, there's another, you know, I think the number that is used, 3.4 jobs in the UK supply chain. So I think it's a really important point as well, why it is so important for all of us to collaborate and work together. But it's not just about, you know, the buses that we make, but about the broader UK supply chain as well. So yes, this is really just to show a really unbelievable journey that we've been on. You can see certainly transformation. I think down from like 50 employees in 2019, and now we're gonna be like, I think 2,500 by the end of the year. But I think also having done that by pivoting from diesel buses to the vast majority being electric and hydrogen. So I think, again, is that whole green growth, green jobs agenda. It does show it's possible. I think we all hear so much criticism and so many difficulties at the moment, but at the end, this is a story that it is possible. And as I said, this is a combination of hydrogen. You guys will know better than me. There are some complications in terms of availability of green hydrogen, but certainly electric buses as well. So in terms of how we've been structuring our partnership with APC, is that we've got a long-standing relationship with Queen's University. You can see there were initial consultation dating back many years, but the funding bits that we've created over the years, we set up our own technology institute within Queen's University, WTech, and it is through them that we've, submitted programs on the next generation of single liner, but also hydrogen double-deck buses, and a variety of other projects. So it really has been instrumental in developing the next generation of zero-emission buses. Other projects have also included recently us putting together a project on developing the prototype for the first hydrogen coach, which again could be very attractive because the distances involved. But there have also been projects, recently one that was improved with Ionic Technology, so far smaller player in Northern Ireland on that circularity element of using recycled materials. So a proud and long-standing history. Okay. Spoke to all of this, yeah, but you can see 42 million in collaborative research projects over the years, and really being at the core of knowledge transfer, upskilling a new generation of engineers. And yeah, it's I think a really good example of a UK manufacturer now being Europe's fastest growing bus manufacturer, and this partnership being at the center of it. So yeah, again, this just gives you all the different examples of the project that we've been working on. But I think it's really important that it gives you just the breadth of what's possible, whether it's on fuel cells, whether it's a next generation, whether it's on safety, but also, as I said here, you see the next generation of hydrogen, but also then the XXX buses, which are interesting when it comes to international route to market, because it's less of a attractive route to market in this country. So you see, just to close this off, again, really happy to elaborate during the break on another occasion, but just to really reiterate what was said this morning already is, how do you make sure that these funding bits are successful? And I think it's again, not to repeat what's on the slide, but I think the best advice would be not to see it as a grant or funding, but really to use it from the outset, from the product pipeline development, as a collaboration in terms of getting input and understanding what's possible, rather than just using it as a grant. I think that's missing the point. Is sharing the vision and really understanding what you guys laid out this morning in terms of what are we writing together. So this is really, in summary, clearly we have had this long-standing relationship with Queen's University, but it's important, depending on the funding stream, but to get the right consortium together and spending a little bit of time on that. As I just said, get as much guidance from the team as possible, that there are no surprises, and there can be various iterations of a product idea. And I know that after today, we'll be going through the same process with you guys again, just to make sure that it is something that adds value and ultimately has a strong execution plan and route to market, and I think that's important. Well, that's where we're doing it, and creates the value for money, whether it's jobs. Again, the government has been very clear in terms of its growth agenda, but clearly in the end it is decarbonisation as well. So in summary, I think that's really it. I think that's all I was going to share for now. As I said, if there's interest in digging deeper in any of the specific projects that were concluded in the past or come along, I'm really, really happy to share. I'm also happy to share, what we're thinking in terms of the next phase. But again, it feels a bit, doesn't feel very humble standing here. But in terms of taking it in the way of a celebration of the partnership, I hope that the APC team and Innovate UK would agree that in terms of scoring the value for money, but on all these different levels the partnership has brought, it has been very, very positive. But partially, again, stressing because it's been such a close collaboration. So it's not just us going off and doing our own thing. Great.
Good afternoon, folks. Good morning, I should say. How are we doing? I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking to you about Mobilise. Mobilise is our dedicated SME accelerator. Just to put it in context, SMEs can play throughout our whole ecosystem of funding opportunities. We're not just saying SMEs can work with Mobilise, but we recognise from early in APC's journey that we do need specific programs targeted just at SMEs, just at startups, just at people who are starting their innovation journey to help them work into what is quite a challenging industry. In 2024, we have, and up to 2024, working with partners at Zenzig and Niche Vehicle Network, we developed quite a variety of different initiatives to help support SMEs and startups. And the feedback we got was that they were good, all good offerings in their own right, but it was too much. There was too much proliferation of different options, and we needed to look at simplification and streamlining. So from 2025 onwards, we're looking at bringing all of these programs together and consolidating them under a single offering, which will be Mobilise. We launched the first cohorts at the start of this year. We've got that off the ground. We've got 17 companies active on it. From the end of this year and into next year, you're going to see a little bit more change additionally. As an overview, Mobilise is our tailored package of support suitable specifically for high growth potential SMEs and, of course, startups that are at the start of their innovation journey. It's a structured early stage accelerator program. It has phases, it's got work streams, it's got content, stuff that we're doing with the companies on the program to help them be ready for investment, ready for growth. It comes with a package of grant support, 180,000. We take, of course, no equity stake. This is a grant. But additionally, also mentoring from independents, mentoring from industry experts, mentoring from people that we can bring together to help supercharge startup and SMEs journeys into success. It's heavily focused on investor readiness. It includes access to the world-leading UK CAM CAM test facilities. So there's technical capability within this thing. And companies that have been through this process have raised nearly £400 million of private funding as follow-on. So we're really pleased with the success we've had with it over the last few years and hope that it carries on into the future. And the idea with doing Mobilise is that we start with startups and SMEs, people who are, say, at TRL 3, earliest stage on their journey. We provide this support and this funding. And at the end, of course, they've improved their TRL, but they're ready for the market, they're ready for investment, and ultimately they're ready to take the next step towards success. Now, Mobilise is good, and we want to carry on offering it in the form roughly that it's been, with a few tweaks and improvements. But we've also stepped back and said, where are the gaps in our SME offer? And how do we best integrate the Niche Vehicle Network offering that we're going to be pulling into the same, under the same brand? So firstly, the challenges on the left-hand side, and then I'll talk through our direction for 2026 on the right-hand side. Direction, focus, funding, investment readiness for seed to Series A stage startups remains a challenge. And that's all the stuff we're doing through our current Mobilise offer, and we're going to carry on doing that stuff. It's an all-in accelerated program. But there are still challenges that remain for companies that are within Mobilise, but also a bit more broadly. It can be really challenging to actually find and land a UK customer. Let's face it, folks, you want to grow a business, finding a customer is kind of important. So we really need to focus on that. Of course, companies need to take a bigger check. They need to take a bigger step forward. We've got some opportunities through the collaborate and the demonstrate funding, but there is a bit of a gap, and some people find that those just to be a little bit too much of a leap. So we're looking at that chart. We really want to look at this signaling piece. So when people are raising money, it's really important for them to have an early adopter, but it's also really powerful for them to have signaling from bigger players in the future that say, this thing could go big if we can just bridge the next few years. And then lastly, of course, if we're helping people raise seed to Series A, that's one step in the journey, but helping people raise the bigger investment rounds later on is also important, and we know actually it gets harder, if not easier. So our direction for 2026, we want to add a phase to the Mobilise programme. I'll try to put it into a graphic in a minute. I'm not sure exactly how it's landed. We're still sort of trying to play with how we communicate this, but we want to create a pool of industry challenges. We want to try and make the industry pull, the market pull, much more clear through this additional phase of Mobilise. I'll walk you through that in just a moment. We want to provide a slightly larger budget for people who are at that stage. We want people to have the opportunity to take on some customer sponsorship through sponsored POCs, and we want to offer specific OEM industry as well as Series A plus coaching to help people get ready for that stage in the journey. So on the previous slide, you saw this top slide, this top graphic, which is all about starting with the startups, up to Series A stage, ambition, SMEs, helping with funding, helping them with business support, taking them through to a great outcome. We want to carry on doing that. For 2026 onwards, we also want to add on the phase that I think I'm trying to do a little bit too much as a graphic, but hopefully it'll make sense when I walk through it. We want to add on a market POC phase. So we want to start with automotive UK-based customers, people that have got challenges that are looking at 2030 onwards. People that are going to help us define innovation topics and bring a bit of coaching and insight into the program. We then want to come out to the startup ecosystem in the UK and say, these are the challenges which these companies are looking for. Come and pitch your ideas and then work with these automotive-based customers, a sponsorship group, to select the right ones to fund through a customer POC. Hopefully, through this process, we can help people get ready for seed to Series A, and we can then help people get ready for post-Series A investment. Folks, we are a little bit behind schedule, and I think I've brought us back pretty close to being on time. So what we're going to do is we're just going to move everything back by about 10 minutes. You're going to have me again. I'm going to introduce Anaphite after the break, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about scale up. So quickly, back in the room, please, for 11:40, and that'll be great, and we'll get going. Thank you very much. So next up, we have another guest presentation. So it's my absolute pleasure to introduce Charlie from Anaphite. Anaphite have been part of our previous accelerator, TNAP, and are a leading light in battery manufacturing. Ladies and gents, a round of applause and a welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Charlie. I'm the operations lead at Anaphite Limited. It's the reason why I'm standing in front of everyone today talking. I have the pleasure of being the project manager for a number of projects with the APT and friends at Innovate UK. These projects have really kind of defined where Anaphite has come over the last few years. All in different ways. I'll talk about a few of the different projects we've done. They've all done different things for our company, but they've been really important to get us to the place where we are today. That's it. So I'm going to do this. So I'm going to do a quick 5 minutes on what Anaphite does. Hopefully there's some new people here that haven't heard about Anaphite before and some that have. And then I'll do kind of 5 minutes on our funding journey and how the APC has helped us and how the different projects have helped us along the way. So, Anaphite. So Anaphite are a process technology business. So we're in the battery space, focusing on automotive batteries, and we're between these kind of two steps. So essentially, our endpoint is our electrode. The start point is kind of raw materials coming into the factory. And basically, we sit between these two steps. Where state of the art is at the moment is with something called wet coating. I'm sure lots of you would have heard of this. But essentially, you mix up the materials for your electrode and in nasty solvent. And basically, after you put that onto your aluminium foil for the cathode side, you then have to dry it off in a big long oven. And this is where we're at the moment with state of the art, but there's an emerging technology, dry coating, where essentially you get rid of that big oven within your factory. And this is where Anaphyte kind of sits and where our technology sits. So the idea is we can use 30% less energy because we're getting rid of this big whack and great oven. And also we can reduce the sale of the production cost of electricity for this and save you a bunch of space. So are people interested in this? Hopefully you've seen some of these logos before. Yes, there are people that and big companies that are committed to the transition to this technology, but there are significant challenges to making this profitable. There are big issues at the moment with actually getting the precursor that goes into your calendar to essentially make your electrode with this dry technology that needs to be overcome, and that's where we sit. So Anaphyte's technology, and I don't have time to kind of go into this in detail, but please come and find me afterwards if you want to know a bit more about this. Is we sit here. So after the raw materials, we sit here, and Anaphyte's proprietary DCP dry coating precursor technology is essentially the creation of a material that can go straight into a calendar, that can go on and essentially then be put straight into the calendar to make your electrode dry without the need of kind of your wet coating ovens. So our solution is a dry electrode powder, and it's custom formulated to specifications. So really the amazing thing about the Anaphyte technology is that we're kind of applicable kind of across the broad range of kind of battery technologies. Having said that, you know, the vision is big. We envision a future where the majority of battery cells worldwide can use this technology because we're applicable across a huge range of different chemistries, and we believe that the technology we've got can kind of sit internationally. We want to be able to, you know, be driving that forward from the UK perspective. So that was really brief in terms of what Anaphyte does. Like I say, please come and talk to me and know a bit more about the technology. But what I want to talk to you about is a little bit about our funding journey, because the APC has really been instrumental in what we've been able to do over the last few years. So I'm starting from May 23. We did have some Faraday Battery Challenge projects before this, but this is all about actually when we started our dry coating journey, because during the TDAP, which is now the Mobilize, or has become the kind of Mobilize project, we actually changed really the whole position of where our company is, from working in kind of a wet system before with improved performance, really thinking about this enabling dry coating kind of globally. So there's a number of different projects here, and they've all done something different for Anaphyte. So TDAP kind of on a small scale, you'll see, I'll show you the size of our dry coating team when we started it, but this has really helped to pivot into something that you know, is really thriving at the moment. We had a Future Economy Investor Partnership grant, which after pivoting to dry coating really allowed us to validate this product and then kind of move forward to a position where we could raise our Series A on this. And in August last year, we raised a £10.4 million Series A based off of this dry coating technology. And then most recently, we've had a feasibility study where we've actually looked at, right, going forward, we know that we can produce this on kind of a small scale, but going forward, what is the value of the Anaphyte technology in some of these gigafactories we're talking about? And actually from a UK perspective, we were able to look at that as well. So to go into a little bit more detail, I said I'd show you the size of the dry coating team before. So we just had one person working on dry coating when we started on TDAP. And what TDAP allowed, it was in two phases. The first 6 months was really looking at the market, and then the second half of TDAP was a technology demonstrator. And basically, in looking at the market, we pivoted our whole business over to dry coating, because we realized just how important it was and just how much of an effect we could have kind of in this area. So TDAP helped massively in this. And in the technology demonstration phase, we also realized that actually how important it is to understand the different materials, and how important it is to talk to our customers about what they need, and validating essentially that our materials can be effective kind of across different chemistries. So this was a really important point for Anaphyte. Unfortunately, just after this, we were successful in getting a Future Economy Investor Partnership grant. And obviously, when you switch your whole business over to something like this, you realize that you need to know a lot more things. So actually, we realized that our internal knowledge of dry coating and how the dry coating process works is also massively important. So we didn't just have to understand the mixing side of it, but we had to understand actually the coating side of the technology as well. So what FIVE did was it enabled us the resources to accelerate the validation of our technology so that we could actually close a Series A based on this technology in August, which wasn't actually long after the pivot to dry coating, which, yeah, we wouldn't have been able to do without these resources, which is fantastic. And also during this project, we went from literally R&D scale, looking at very small kind of electrodes, to actually going up to greater than 5 meter double-sided coating of our electrodes dry coated, which is really impressive during the time period. And we have, it's actually one of our scientists that's been very happy with some dry coated electrodes. And then the most recent project that we've done, more of a pen and paper type exercise, but really important for us, was a feasibility study. And this was actually to look at the value of Anaphyte's technology kind of on a larger scale and say, right, if we were to put our technology into a gigafactory, what are the savings we made here? And the important thing about this is, okay, big companies are saying we can save you 30% of cost here, 10% of cost there. But actually, without us knowing the detail, it's very difficult for us to then go and talk with confidence to potential customers and say, right, this is where we're saving your money. So what this allowed, and it goes to a lot of what Hadi was talking about earlier, about understanding the kind of battery supply chain, the battery market, was us to really put our finger on the value and also look at more things as well. It's not just about cost, it's about regulations and safety, right? We're not using the same solvent anymore. We get rid of NMP, which is horrible to have in your factory. We can save you time because your factory is much smaller. Potentially, you know, we can validate much quicker with dry coating. And we also did an LCA study, so we could really look at the environmental effects of actually putting Anaphyte's technology into a factory. So being able to do this probably getting this project, we did this work probably a year before we would have done, because the kind of APC allowed us to have this resource. And it allowed us to look at, right, what would this actually look like in the UK? A lot of the big customers we'll talk about is, well, okay, you're going to have heard these big names, they're overseas. We don't want to get pulled out of the UK, but if we have to, then it will happen, right? So to be able to look at our value of, right, if we do something in the UK, what's our value? This was really important to us. And also what this will do is we actually made a model during this where we could model the different values. And we managed to look at some different scenarios. So we could say, right, if we were going to make electrode, what's our value? If we were going to license our technology, what's the value in that? And it allowed us to look at different scenarios to actually kind of look at our strategy as to what we're going to apply for next or what we're going to look for investment next, which has been really important. So that kind of brings us on to what next, and hopefully the APC side, this is looking exciting because we're definitely excited about what's being spoken about today, because we'll definitely want to apply to some of this because we need to move forward now and we need to scale up with what we're doing. So from the TDAP, we obviously saw that we need to be working with a range of different materials. And so we've been working with customers to see the benefits from using their materials and their cell and electrode design. So this is saying, right, the scenario where we go out and we say our technology is compatible with what you're doing. But what we're also doing is in-house is we're saying, right, we know that the validation required is going to have to be at a big scale. So that from our conversations with customers, we know that we need to validate at ton batches. And so that's what we're looking to do in-house internally. And it's fantastic. It'll be fantastic to be able to have this in the UK where we can produce these materials kind of on site and we can do our internal validation. We're also looking to broaden the range of materials. So this is something, obviously, we always want to be looking at the next steps, and we don't want to kind of fall behind, focus on one chemistry and then say, actually, this chemistry is not useful anymore. And so then Anaphyte will kind of fall by the wayside. We want to make sure that we're working on kind of the next generation of materials all the time. So really important on that side of this. And then, like I say, the different scenarios from the ATF feasibility study, kind of looking at these different scenarios, we want to be able to support and accelerate what we're doing with our customers. But on the other side of that, we want to be able to make sure that we can do our own electrode production in-house. And so we're making sure that on both sides of this, we can kind of have that open combination. So hopefully that's a little bit of inspiration about what these projects with the APC can do. Like I say, without the APC, without Innovate UK, we wouldn't have been able to do this as quickly as we've managed to do this over the last few years. I've gone over things quite quickly, so if you want to talk about any of this, even about just the project management on some of these projects, then yeah, please come and talk to me. And that's me for today.
In fact, that's a really opportune moment to now talk about the next topic, which is around scaling up. Scaling up for us is about two new funding products. We're going to have our scale-up feasibility studies, and we're going to talk about scale-up fund. Now, scale-up feasibility studies is a live opportunity that went live in parallel with the programs that Alex talked about earlier this week. That's something you can apply for right now. I'm going to be telling you about the scope of that, how to apply, what we're looking for. The scale-up fund, we're not announcing yet formally. Today, I want to give you a few prompts, a few pointers as to what it's all going to be about, and a little bit of a sense of what the timeline looks like for the scale-up fund. Overall, the approach we're trying to take here, folks, is that we're obviously operating in a wide funnel for innovation. The best ideas are passing through, and then scale up is about helping people that are emerging from R&D, emerging from successful R&D, it's got really promising, and need to move in towards manufacturing. So what does that journey look like? With scale up in general, we're taking an assets focused approach. So there's lots of challenges in scaling up the business, operationally, getting the right customers, getting investment, but a core challenge that we seem to come up against time and time again are the assets that are required, the sheer quantum of investment to move through this journey from concept and lab scale work through towards industrialization. And this is a little bit of a rubric that we're building to try and help describe that journey. We can all understand and think about the kind of assets that people are using when they're doing R&D. I mean, I didn't want to write garage or kitchen deck workbench, but people who are working at concept stage or a lab stage or in their workshops, we all understand that stuff, and we've got great support for that stuff through our innovation competitions. The challenge we see is that as people move towards pilot lines, or as you might think of them, low volume manufacturing lines, or demonstration lines, you might think of them as mid-volume, or indeed industrial plants, that full scale industrial footprint to be able to manufacture this stuff, it does get really tough. The way that we are conceiving of these things, and by the way, folks, we're not dictating the language that everyone needs to use, we're just trying to use terminology which seems to be relatively well utilized in industry to explain the steps that we're planning to support. We're conceiving of the pilot line as an initial production line. It's the kind of facility that people can use to develop their processes with very high flexibility, probably low volume output. Of course, it's used for process development and to pilot initial process steps, but also it can be used commercially, be used for those first adopter programs, be used for people that need to take the first 100 off, 1,000 off, maybe even up to as far as 10. Then demonstration line, we're conceiving as that as a single first of a kind manufacturing plant representing a scaled up manufacturing workflow. It might have a medium flexibility, so higher than a pilot line, medium flexibility, so things are getting more serious, a little bit less flexible than a pilot line, and higher volume output. But it's still used for lots of process development. It's still being used to validate processes and also validating quality control. And you might use this commercially to go ahead and secure increasing offtake. And then lastly, full industrial production facilities. Again, we can imagine what they look like. These are full-scale manufacturing footprints that are able to deliver at volume for automotive customers. Typically lower in flexibility, very high output, and it's all about volume programs. Now, the bottom two lines are really critical on this chart. So for the feasibility study scope, all of pilot line, demonstration line, and industrial plants are in scope. So in a minute when I'm talking through that, think that this stuff applies to everything from your first initial production line through to full-scale manufacturing. For actually the support mechanism that we're putting in place to support the build, pilot line and demonstration line, that's where we're going to be aiming the scale-up fund. And then the industrial plant, the at-volume manufacturing, is where we're aiming the automotive transformation fund. It's worth noting that you can get support for facility development through the Innovation Fund, and people do, there's a reason that's chevron but not straight, people do get support for pilot lines. This is not about being a closed book. There's a little bit of overlap in this, and that's on purpose because we don't want things falling between the gaps. So firstly, scale up feasibility studies. This opportunity is live right now. We're offering up to £750,000 grant funding for single applicants to undertake planning studies, investment case studies, business case studies, for people that are planning out that scale towards their next step of manufacturing. These people can be looking to build facilities at pilot, demo, or full industrial scale. We'd like them to deliver their projects within 9 months. We're offering up to 60% grant for SMEs and a bit less for large companies. And it can be single applicants, but we really do expect people to come forward and bring in the expertise they need from subcontractors outside their organisation. So what might a great feasibility study include? Well, of course, if you're looking at building a manufacturing facility, whether it be a small one or a big one, you need to know what the plan's going to be so you can develop a detailed project plan. You can work on the layout or the flow sheet of your facility. You can continue to develop your commercialization plan for the tech that you want to manufacture. You can produce really robust costing and financial models, looking at not just what it's going to cost you to build the plant, but also what are going to be inflows and outflows of cash once it's operating. You can bring all of that together into a strong business case, which clearly outlines the case for investment in the UK. And also it can outline the challenges in doing so, because sometimes things don't quite add up. And then lastly, we've got a catch-all. We really want to help people to develop all of the insight, the plans, the knowledge, the information, the assets they require to be able to take this business case out into the world and raise the investment, raise the debt, raise the corporate budget to be able to actually execute their manufacturing project. So you should see a feasibility study is a piece of work that you can undertake to be ready to get that investment for manufacturing. Technology scope, everything that Alex talked about in the zero emission vehicle bucket earlier on. So from electrical energy storage, electric machines and driveline, power electronics, internal combustion engine for off-road applications that support a transition to zero emission vehicles using non-fossil fuels, lightweighting technologies, fuel cell systems, storage and management systems, and excitingly for the first time ever, zero emission vehicle assembly plants. So if you're planning a zero emission vehicle assembly plant, a pilot, a demo, or full industrial scale, you can apply for a feasibility study to enable you to go out and win that investment. This is a live opportunity right now. We opened it on Monday. We're going to be closing it on the 3rd of September. We plan to do a Q&A webinar on Friday. And then we want people to start rapidly. There's a single applicant competition, so we expect people to be ready to go. We want people to start ideally from the 1st of December. You'll have up to the 1st of January. We're not messing around. We don't want this stuff dragging on forever. We want to get people going. We want to get these projects started. You can find out more information on our website. Make contact with any of us if you want to talk about this opportunity, and probably the QR code there if you want to access it quickly. So that's scale up feasibility studies, all about helping you get ready for investment in manufacturing. But what about when you want to? As I said earlier on, if you're coming out of successful innovation, you're ready for investment, you've completed your own or a funded feasibility study, and you either want to take the step to intermittent, to first scale manufacturing or full scale manufacturing, we've got the right funds in place, we're building the right things to help you be able to do that. I'm going to talk through the scale of funding. Folks, we're not launching this today. Okay, we're not quite ready to share all of the details on the scale up fund. I'd love to tell you a bit more than I can, but we are still working on the finer detail. The point of putting this slide up again is just to say this is about helping this intermittent phase. So we know that people can innovate successfully in the UK. We know that we can do full-scale industrialization in the UK. The challenging bit is the bit in the middle. And the reason why is because there's still risk. The innovation manufacturing might not scale. The market might not take off for it. You still might, people still might screw up the project and not be able to deliver a manufacturing project. So they're not really at the level of risk and scale that we're looking for at full industrial. So the question is, how do we do something slightly different to help people manage that risk, but give people enough grant funding to bridge that gap? The challenges that people face is ultimately you need investment to be able to build these plants. Even at pilot scale, you could be talking about tens of millions. An industrial scale and demo scale could be up to 100 million or beyond. So these are still expensive assets to deploy. You need sizable investors. But investors don't like to invest without commercial contracts. But the challenge is that customers tend to be unwilling to place orders unless you can show how you're going to manufacture your product. But you need to be able to get the customer, to get the investor, to get the money to be able to grow the business. So there's a classic catch 22. If anything, it's three sides, so maybe we should catch 33. But there's this trilemma that affects people. So what we're trying to do with the Scale Up Fund is unlock that trilemma. We're going to be offering in the region of up to £20 million per application. It's going to be grant funding, no equity take, no asset hangover, no impact on the capitalization table, no impact on ROI or on net present value for corporate investors. We're going to be looking at really flexible funding support to help people do facility development. And that means the right kind of grant funding, the right kind of budget elements. We want people to be developing real world pilot scale and demonstration scale assets that can help them get through that manufacturing ramp and actually into the market. The projects are going to be all about developing the manufacturing capability, but also developing the commercial viability, taking that process into market. And actually, there will be some flexibility around that. We're really close to announcing further details. The fund will be delivered by APC, Innovate UK, and it'll be backed by BBC. So this is going to be an R&D management process. It's not going to be a government capital management process. It should make it right for the kind of customers around this. We've got a web page. It's pretty much a holding space at the moment. As I say, we're not quite ready to release publicly the details, but reach out to us if this feels like it could be something you need in the near future. Reach out to us, make contact. We want to speak to you. We're building the pipeline for this right now. So, folks, that is the Scale Up Fund. That's everything I can say today. Come and speak to us after. I've now got the absolute pleasure of handing over to Tim Woolmer from YASA. YASA are a leading light. I mean, beyond, these guys are, I would say, the leaders in scaling up their innovation from a startup coming out of university all the way through now to industrial relevant footprint, people who are delivering products to market to real automotive customers here in the UK. So, ladies and gents, a very warm welcome to Tim.
Started my timer because I'm used to the agency giving you a clock and shutting you down if you press it over. So yeah, it's a great, real privilege to be here today and talk a little bit about YASA's funding journey, because it's been a long journey, about 15 plus years. I'm getting old. So let's see if this works. Yeah. So the first thing I just want to talk about for a couple of minutes is about the importance of having a USP in this space. So the YASA technology, and this was a lot of my PhD work, has a really nice, fundamentally good physics magnetic advantage, which is if we do a good job with the technology, we should be about a third the size and about a third the weight of a radial machine. And that just comes back to the fundamental magnetics of the technology. Now, obviously the technologies have improved massively over the years. When I started, I think the Prius was the benchmark for power density at about 0.6 kilowatts per kilogram. So coming out of university at a kilowatt per kilogram, we were really excited about this technology. Now, of course, radial flux technologies improved massively. We had Tesla coming out with 4 or 5 kilowatt per kilogram motors, and then Lucid are probably pushing north of 10 now. So the technologies moved really quickly forwards. So we think about specifically our customers, but our first industrialized product to go into the market was with Ferrari on their SF90. And that was at a power density of 14 kilowatts per kilogram. So at the time, that was like 5 or 6 years ago, that was about, again, a 3-to-1 ratio when compared to what you can get from a Tesla. Now, we're going to announce something really exciting tomorrow. I'm going to give you a sneak preview, but we reckon we've broken the world record for power density on a prototype motor. Again, this is part of an APC funded project where we're now pushing towards 42 kilowatts per kilogram. So that's about 10 times what you're getting a Tesla Plaid today. And that's for some really exciting wheel motor technology, which again is sort of some next generation stuff I'm not going to talk about today, but is in the innovation lab today. So I'm now going to give you the world's most complex and worst slide on the planet. So I apologize. I put in a load of those nice slide transitions, and the APC ripped them all out, so you get it all in one here. Oh, no, you don't. They're there. They lied to me. Good. So you might understand it, right? So the journey, really, I've split it down into 4 phases. Of course, it's a sliding scale all the way through, but very much this journey started back in 2005 with a funded PhD with Morgan as a car company partner to make the world's first hydrogen sports car. And that was what was the DTI, effectively an Innovate UK funded project, and it funded my PhD to the tune of about £120,000. So pretty small money. But out of that project, we discovered that there was some really interesting technology, and it enabled us to spin off this into a company that we called Oxford YASA Motors, so it's now called YASA, back in 2009. And the beauty is that that company was actually started with an Innovate UK grant of about 600K. So, and that enabled us to take that to investors. So before the company even existed, we had a grant offer letter, I think this had probably never happened before. Maybe this happened since, but we took this grant off the letter to investors. We said, look, we've got some government-backed money here. We've got some technology, and we had some customers, and that enabled us to go and raise this first sort of 1.5 million to get the company kicked off and into life. Now, the first couple of years of the company, really exciting. Our first really exciting OEM projects was with Jaguar. Some of you may remember the CX-75. We were gutted, it never went into production, but we made 6 versions of a prototype, rapidly improving our technology because it just didn't work well enough initially, and then it worked a bit better, and then eventually the final of 6 prototypes worked brilliantly in their 5 demo vehicles. And that again triggered a little bit more investment. It enabled us to move into a proper facility with a little bit of space, 8,000 square feet, so we could make, you know, a few hundred motors a year, something of that size. And that's really, and it's come across today, that is really what I describe sort of phase 2, where you're investing millions, but it's a small number of millions. You're trying to get some demos out there, and you're trying to prove you've got a viable technology. The big scale-up phase, and I think this was just talked about, this is where it gets quite expensive, and you can see the kind of ticket items on investment raised are kind of over that period, sort of, you know, 40-50 million pounds, was as we scaled into let's call it niche volume production with McLaren, with Ferrari, with Lamborghini. So again, because of the USPs of the technology, it had this really nice ability to open up new architectures for these companies, whether it's P1, P2, or very compact front axles, P4 front axles. But again, this was really helped. We had a project called Balscale, which was with McLaren and Hofer. And really, it's that combination of having technology, having a customer, really unlocks the finances. So, and this is where the APC have been really such a catalyst for YASA. It's not necessarily the size of the money that's been so important. It's having the customer on the table saying, we want this, being able to go to an investor saying, hey, we've got a customer and we've got some money. Can you fill in the blank check? And of course, they're much more open when you've got a customer on the table. This original project was aimed at a success was like 2,500 motors a year. The derivative of that technology scales next year into 25,000 motors a year. So it's about 10x the original exploitation that we planned. And we just did a relaunch of our Yarnton factory, a big investment, just 15 million investment we just completed to scale up the factory. And as we ramp up in volume from 4 years ago doing 1,000 motors to next year, we'll be doing 25,000 motors a year. Now, where it gets interesting and really expensive is in this last phase. And actually, as we moved into looking at full EDU projects, and again, backed by the APC, Mercedes became so interested in the technology that they bought the company in 2021. Now, of course, some people can look at that and say, the UK's done the classic thing. We've sold our technology to a German or a Chinese or some OEM. The beauty of this deal is that, well, first of all, Mercedes have invested in the UK over 100 million since the acquisition. So way more than the funding that we had since before day one. It was actually Mercedes that invested in the 15 million growth of the factory in the UK as well. Secondly, Mercedes love the UK for what we do for innovation. So there is a whole opportunity to repeat this. I mentioned we're working on this wheel motor technology. Mercedes will never be the first to take that to market. That might come from one of the niche customers. And so again, having this ability to prove that we can go from very low TRL idea to scale up into volume production is a really exciting loop that we can demonstrate here in the UK. Now, I want to give one number that the economists will love. This is for the guys in finance, which is pretty much at every stage of the journey, we've been able to demonstrate that APC money or Innovate money has basically been leveraged 10 to 1 with private investment. And that's pretty much all 4 of those phases. You can kind of do the maths and work that out. So again, it's not the money that is important when it comes back to the APC. It's the catalyst of the money is offered first. It's on the table, and then being able to leverage the customer second, and then third, the private investment is actually the easy bit when you've got the other 2 in place. So I think the APC honestly done a phenomenal job at enabling a story like this. I think if you pulled out any one of those grant opportunities, I struggle to believe we would have made it, maybe even at all as a business. So now the fun stuff. These are some of the cars we've been working on. You can, I'm sure you've all got these in your garages at home. We've got the lovely Ferraris, the SF90 and the 296. These again, a couple of products, the McLaren Artura, which we're not allowed to talk about, and the take the video off. And then we've got the Temerario and the Revuelto from Lamborghini. So again, the beauty that with electrification is on some of these products, we have 3 motors. So even if there are only 4,000 Lamborghini Revuelto sold, it starts to be quite sizable volume. So just to talk a little bit about what this has meant in terms of investment, revenue, CapEx. So yes, as a business that is pushing towards around a kind of 100 million turnover, as we move into more EDUs, that could significantly increase. And in terms of CapEx investment, if you look at it cumulatively, between 2016 and 2028, it's nearly an 18 million CapEx investment that we've had into UK. The big yellow block there on the right-hand side is we move into a big new HQ next summer, which has been funded by Mercedes, and that's obviously one of the key pillars to being able to expand your technologies, having the footprint to be able to produce it. In terms of headcount, we've been on a kind of a steady growth. I think when we did our bow scale project with the APC, we were like 50 people. And we've actually worked since with a number of companies with about 50 people on APC projects, just sort of recognizing the ability to grow from that sort of 50 to 500 in that kind of 10-year timescale is really, really possible if you've got the right customers and projects. And like I said, on facilities, our main facility today where we're producing is this facility in Yarnton, but we've got this nice new facility that you can see in the bottom right, which we move into next summer. So we're really super excited about that. So really just to wrap up, I think, yes, it's a really interesting journey because I've watched all the phases going from those really, really low cost C phases, you know, a couple of 100K PhD through to watching Mercedes investing literally hundreds of millions into the technology. And that's really exciting to watch a technology mature, but also realize just how expensive it gets in the latter stages. And it does need, equivalent support. As I made the point before, the 20 million has been amazing and massively appreciated, but by far the biggest impact of it has been the leverage impact of that investment, which has been like a 10 to 1. And I think this has been spoken about today. We need to have technologies with strong USPs in the UK, and we need to grow our technology, our financing facilities, all in parallel, because you take away one of those pillars and you can't scale. So yeah, that's me done for today. Thank you very much for your time listening.
Right. Good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully I'm not going to be too long, so we'll stand between you and the curled up sandwiches, which are the best sandwiches in the world, even when they're curled up. Right. I'd just like to talk to you a little bit about the Automotive Transformation Fund as part of the DRIVE35 programme. And to do that, let's take a little bit of a positive look back over the last 5 years, which is the life of the ATF. In fact, next week we come to the 5-year anniversary of launching the first programme. And we've had some stunning successes, actually. It's really good to just look back and see what can be done despite all of the headwinds that we may have endured over that period. When we think about it, of course, we launched the ATF in July 2020, right in the middle of the first COVID lockdown. We didn't have a trade deal with the EU. We still got quite heavy friction in trade with our neighbours on the continent. And we've got very significant trends towards hollowing out of the supply chain in the UK. And we didn't have a policy around zero emission vehicles that was all locked down. And the EU was still developing their Fit for 55 CO2 trajectory. So there were a lot of unknowns. So honestly, the first 18 months felt like banging your head against a brick wall. But we came back and we came back strong. So just looking at the successes on the right-hand side, so far, and I can tell you the real numbers are actually a bit higher than this, but this is what we can lock in. We've delivered for the UK over 6 billion of capital investment in projects for industrialisation at scale and over 6,000 jobs. That's not to be sniffed at. That's a very good return for taxpayers' pound. And that in large part has enabled Paolo and the DBT Auto team to get authority to continue to fund a new programme for the next 5 years with a slightly changed scope. The first 5 years, of course, have been very focused on upstream supply chain, from battery raw materials right the way through to full battery manufacture and electric drive units and so on and so forth. But we've been largely technology new. What we'd like to look at for the next 5 years is really building on the context of today and the outlook of that context, that international context over the next 5 years. The trade environment has changed. I don't think any of you in this room will have failed to have noticed the Trump regime and the impact it's had on its own domestic policy as well as international policy. We've got significant investment challenges, as we've heard from many businesses that are starting to scale. We've also seen some very large business failures, like Northvolt, for example. And we have to find ways to overcome those difficulties that impact investor propensity when we're looking to scale technologies and businesses in this sector. Of course, we've got to look at some other wider policy objectives for government as well, supporting regional development. And in the industrial strategy a couple of weeks ago, of course, there are two large automotive clusters that are being focused on, one in the northeast and one around the Midlands for both R&D and manufacturing development. And we're delighted to see that there is a commitment now to building to 1.3 million units. That helps us regrow some of the demand side to sustain the tier 1 and the tier N supply base in the UK. We've dropped last year to about 850,000, but in 2017, we were at 1.7 million. We know we can do it, but for a variety of reasons, including rescheduling of product plans and realignment of business strategies for several of the players here, of course, we've seen that number drop. And that's had an impact across the wider supply chain. But we have the potential, we have the skills, and increasingly when we look at what are the requirements to drive investment around the world from our outreach around the world, people want access to skills, they want access to finance, they want access to technology. And that's something that the UK can bring. One final point I'd like to make on this slide is that whilst grant is a great instrument, it's not the only thing that will make a difference. Grants are there to help level the playing field and get a project to the stage where it's investable. We're going to be working really closely with the more than 20 billion that National Wealth Fund has to deploy over the next 5 years to help them then take those investable projects and then for them to invest in them to bring them through to fruition. So it'll be a much more symbiotic relationship as we go forwards. So if we look at the portfolio of products that we have as part of DRIVE35, we're focusing really on transformation. And the key thing here is that we're extending the scope a little bit, not just to look at the upstream supply chain, but also to look at this vehicle assembly transition and the establishment of new capacity or reinvigorated capacity in the UK. And that's really important. The other thing that you need to drive project viability is demand, right? And the demand for the tier 1 and the tier N comes from the OEM. So we've got to do something to help sustain that ongoing and sustainable demand from the OEMs going forwards. And that will involve attracting some new entrants. We think the industry today will probably get back to about 1 million units, all on its own with a little bit of support. But actually to get to 1.3, there's a step change required with some new entrants. So watch this space. So just thinking about the monetary needs of the programs, as you sort of come up this journey from your SME programs and your accelerators through Mobilise and the demonstration projects and feasibility studies, and you get through scale up, actually the requirements for capital start to grow. And you might think that all money's greenback, it's not. Some of these monies have got different flavors. Capital is very much more difficult in some respects than R&D money. And it comes with a larger attendant risk. You go and talk to investors around the world and often they say, well, we really like IP-rich, CapEx light propositions, right? Because they're easy to back out of, you can fail fast and go on and move on to something else. If you're heavily invested in a very CapEx intense and asset intense business, then frankly, it's very hard to walk away from that stranded asset if it doesn't work out. So people tend to walk away and they go for something that looks a bit easier and a bit more flexible. And that's the challenge of our sector. We are capital intense, and we've got to do something to support that capital intense nature of these projects. And that's exactly what this scheme is intended to do. So what are we doing? We're trying to put forward capital funding to help get those projects for industrialisation at scale. Not small projects. We've got a de minimis threshold of £1 million interventions for these projects, and they're typically much lower intervention rates than you would see for R&D programs. So I'd indicate somewhere in the 5 to 25% range, depending upon the scale of the project. And really, I'd kind of liken or characterise ATF grants as a bit like your Transit Custom Connect. Other light commercials are available, but it's something that's designed to carry the heavy load, but it's also infinitely customizable. The whole point of the ATF is that it's not a fixed open competition window with a small slot. Actually, we want to talk to you and engage at quite an early stage, understand the nature and the character of the project, and then we can try and tailor the level of support around that. So it's a very much customized product. It's true that we want you to move forward at the right stage. And it's not been easy with capital projects to get them through in a very quick manner. So we've made some substantial improvements with DBT on the process about being able to accelerate the process once you go into assessment. There's one thing that's sure, when you go into making a final investment decision about a new project, is that when you're ready to go, you want to make your decisions quickly, because otherwise you'll lose the market opportunity. You'll lose the opportunity for that site that you've just put your reservation on. So we're expecting projects to go into the formal assessment process probably a bit later than in the past, when they're more mature and they're ready to get close to a final investment decision in the near term. The grants will be based on an evidenced need for support. So we look at 3 criteria, essentially: strategic alignment with the aims and objectives, which is about industrializing at scale in the right areas, in the areas where there are needs to deliver rule of origin, for example, or content, and especially where the UK has long-term competitive entitlement. There is no point in us putting money in projects that in 3 or 4 years' time will be hopelessly uncompetitive in a UK context and coming back for another handout. That's not what we're about. We're looking at the key targeted areas, the focused areas where we can make a difference and where a UK investment will have some impact, like, for example, rule of origin or regional value content. And then going into that final investment, final assessment process quite quickly. So we look at the strategic alignment, we look at the evidence need for support, what's called the case for intervention, and there also has to be, sorry to say, an assessment of value for money. And that process was managed effectively by the Grants Delivery Directorate in Department of Business. So just a little bit about the scope. We're sticking broadly with the large categories around energy storage, around e-machines, power electronics, hydrogen fuel cell systems, which are particularly pertinent perhaps to the heavy duty sector, but also crucially all of the upstream materials supply chains for all of those, and some of the other associated areas. So that's the starting point, this key focus. We've got some key gaps in the portfolio. This is a portfolio fund, it's not broad brush. We know we needed battery manufacturing. We've had some great success. We knew we needed electric motor manufacturing as we switched and transitioned from producing internal combustion engines. I'd reliably predict that we'll be making close on 3 million EVUs a year by 2035 in the UK. That's a fantastic transition. But we need the magnet materials to go into these things. We need the capability to be able to source copper wire. We've got to think about some of those upstream raw materials, and we've got great potential in some, like lithium, for example, from our own shores, as well as intermediate processing. They will make a difference to investor propensity because those upstream supply chains can be secured at reasonable cost and with very good provenance footprints, which is more important for the OEMs today because you've got to put a sticker on the windscreen to say what the Earth carbon footprint is. So those are the key sort of areas in the supply chain, but also looking at transition and transformation for the OEMs. How do we find a way to transition the large part of the sector towards zero emission vehicle assembly. It does drive different facility requirements. It does drive different ancillary requirements. We've got to think about materials circularity as well, making sure that we're not just ripping stuff out of the tree. That will be an increasing focus going forwards, and we have some great capability in materials recycling and reprocessing, and we must stop, frankly, exporting a lot of our potential recyclate to have value added back into it before re-importing into the UK, and reduce all of those logistic miles in our journey to making this industry net zero by 2050. We've also got to think about that competitiveness element as well that's been referenced in the innovation scheme. The UK has great competitive entitlement in some areas. We've got really good productivity in the OEM assembly space, but we're a bit challenged, frankly, in a few others. Things like driving down energy costs for the sector with the new scheme, the energy competitiveness scheme announced in the industrial strategy, will really help. But there are some other project areas where we know we're going to have to help deliver using tools like digitalization and integrated design processes to make some of these things in the UK compatible with our labour rates and also with our economic context. So driving automation and aggregation of scale will help us with that journey towards greater international competitiveness. So how's the process going to work? It's effectively a continuously open process with expressions of interest coming in, but we expect you to talk to us before you get to the point of entering into that expression of interest, because we need to help you to put your best foot forward and really test how strong the focus and the alignment is of your project with the aims and ambitions of the scheme and the portfolio that we're targeting. And then we'll open up to you the IFS link, and then go in and start to fill out the initial application forms. And there's a bit more effort required to get to that initial expression of interest, a bit more detail required about outline business plans and project definition than perhaps there was in the past. And that will enable us to then get the project through into formal assessment and detailed analysis by the Grants Delivery Directorate in DBT more quickly. So we're expecting a much faster process to help you get to a final investment decision when you're ready to move forwards. And that's really where we're headed, through this program. We've made some really great inroads into breaking down some of those major barriers to investment over the last 5 years, and with a wider scope, focusing on the areas where we know we've still got some gaps, like those midstream materials and the great technology capability in the UK. We think we can have an even bigger impact over the next 5 years. So I'll draw that to a close now, and I think we're just going to run through into business development to talk a little bit about how we can help you go through those processes. Thanks.
Couldn't possibly run down the stairs like Julia did, dear me. Folks, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here and a pleasure to see you. My job, just in these last few moments now, is to try and bring together the fabulous stories and the fabulous slides that you've seen today. Bring together some of the case studies that you've talked about, and then hopefully start to get those cogs turning. Start getting thinking about how you can work with us to bring around that successful application. Whether you're an experienced APC applicant or whether you're looking at this for the first time. I think that for me, I've just been here now for 3 months with APC, and this is my first event of this kind of nature. First thing that struck me this morning when I walked into the room where you're all taking coffee was just the buzz, the energy, the enthusiasm, and the noise generated by the people in there. And it's fabulous to see, because over the last 3 months, the business development team and I and others have seen this brilliant opportunity build and interest generating in DRIVE35. So hopefully today's insights will give you those fascinating opportunity and really exciting times ahead. And for the APC team, seeing this technology develop and the vision come to life is a really unique opportunity for us. And it's something that we're really relishing and looking forward to support. Today, we hope that we can start to see your ideas and your concepts, your consortium start to come together. We can start to think about the motivation that's going to get you there in terms of securing that time, developing the right networks with the right people, but also as well thinking about the right projects to do. But also as well coming away from events such as this with a firm and strong belief that we can do this. As we start heading towards the questions and the networking session and lunch, as we've all said before, take this opportunity to speak to the team, take this opportunity to get to know us, and then hopefully we'll be able to get to you and support your inquiries. We're expecting a large volume of email traffic after today, and that's great. Keep that coming, and hopefully we'll get to you as quickly as we possibly can. This is all about building that client-centered experience for you. This is all about giving that opportunity to get to know us, get to know what we do and how we do it across the entire range. I'm working with the business development team to Hadi and his team to build those connections and build those networks and identify those opportunities, supporting you towards that full project delivery. Ian talked very much earlier on about the challenges and opportunities that the automotive industry has. And from those opportunities will come the best innovations. That's going to be great to see. Engineering has this brilliant ability and this brilliant opportunity to develop that vision, to grasp and build for success. And it's going to be fantastic to be part of that as you move forward. So for us, hopefully our words of encouragement, our actions and our impact should give you that opportunity now to use this as a springboard to move forward and plan for that success. And we encourage you to do that. Planning for that success is absolutely key. There's lots of information around you. There's going to be lots of guidance available, lots of resources available. But also as well, there's going to be lots of documentation for you to take your time to have a look at and go through. We'd encourage you to take that systematic approach as you do it. This will help you to reduce that complexity around some of the projects, but also as well, it'll give you that guidance and that springboard and that platform on which to build and make that success. Innovation, choices, strategic advantage all come from your research and your review. To give you the chance then to convene and construct, again, the consortia that you might well need to bring that forward. And then obviously working with that consortia and us, refine and then submit those applications. Think about those words from earlier on: innovation, creativity, impact, opportunity. If we can get all that right, hopefully that will build that success for you. And I think from my perspective, I'm really privileged to be part of a business development team that's full of incredibly experienced hands. People that are well scoped in developing those projects, but also delivering those projects as well. It's important that I've been able to embed myself during this time to get this feel about how APC works. And it gives you that confidence that we can work with you to discuss them and explore what you want to do. Again, Ian talked about taking that opportunity, driving that innovation and delivering it. And we've seen already today some fantastic statistics, some fantastic delivery figures and some brilliant opportunities to build that technology, to build that creativity, to build those jobs. Hopefully, our team and others will be able to guide you through each of those stages of the project that you've seen earlier on today, to work and develop those strategic relationships with you, to look to collaborate across that funding landscape, and finally, to support those opportunities to develop those applications. It's been brilliant to see this today and to listen to what's going on, and I'm really excited about the future. I'm going to close now and then hand on ready to the next stage of the session, which are the questions before we head for the best sandwiches in the world.
So I'm going to pause there. The big QR code you can scan. You'll be able to read pretty much everything you've heard, almost everything you've heard today on there, and hopefully more, including all the links to the competitions should you wish to apply, when you wish to apply, I should say. So I'll leave that up for a second, just to let you get on, hopefully, to the website. I'm going to now sort of start to open the floor for, I'm hoping there's a video here that's complete, there you go, an animation. I'm going to open the floor to questions. I will caveat that slightly with your questions stand in the way of everybody around you's lunch. That's not to say don't ask the questions, but everybody, of course, will be available over lunch and beyond to answer your questions, you know, on a one-to-one basis, should you wish. But I don't want to not give you the opportunity to shout. And if anybody has burning questions they would like to ask myself or any of the other speakers who are still left in the room, at least, and then we'll try to answer them as best we can. Anyone? Go on, sir.
Temo Rodriguez from Ricardo. Thank you for all the insights. And so you mentioned TRL multiple times, but you did not mention the actual numbers of TRL and manufacturing readiness level as you go up the funnel. Can you give us a guidance? Obviously, the closer we get to manufacturing, it's TRL 9, but
yeah,
the bottom will be TRL 2 or 3, I think they mentioned. But the other ones in the middle, right? What are you aiming for?
So the question for those, for everyone else was, we talked about technology readiness levels, also manufacturing readiness levels. We didn't give a very clear answer to which numbers we were talking about. Historically, we have kind of cited a very narrow window, but with what you've now seen is quite a diverse set of products, it does expand a little bit. So from Mobilise, Josh talked about potentially TRL3, right through to, you know, the Collaborate project, maybe 4 as a starter, but we're looking for 6s and 7s to finish that project, really. And then the corresponding manufacturing readiness levels, right, they lag slightly. We'd love your project to finish bang on, ready to go to production, but, you know, we give a range because we're understanding that, you know, not everything will land right at the end every time. But for the higher the money is, the further up the scale we're going to see. So as a rough guide. As you get into scale up and the transformation fund, the expectation is the technology readiness level shouldn't really be moving. You should be done, right? Your technology should be pretty much there. We're looking at manufacturing readiness and your commercial position at those stages. That answers the question. Anyone else? Yes.
Rick, Will from GTI. Question about the calls. Can organisations apply for more than one funding stream at any one point?
Yes. Simple answer, yes, you can. Yeah, I mean, we would encourage you to think carefully about what you apply for, because, of course, the more funding you receive, the bigger the burden is, should you be successful in more than one. So yeah, you want to be careful about not overstretching yourself, but there is the opportunity to. And should you be successful in multiple, there's always the opportunity to have a conversation to say, you know, do you really want to take all this on? Do you have the bandwidth within your business? Because we don't want to overstretch. What else? Yes.
Following from the first question, have you seen any change in the government's risk appetite for projects? That probably goes hand in hand with TRL levels,
yeah.
But we all know about the relationship with risk and reward.
Yeah.
When applied for everything, the onerous nature of all the information and needing to know the inside leg measurement of the CEO, etc., etc. Are you seeing a reduction in that and an increase in the risk appetite?
So, I mean, I think, so the question again to repeat was, you know, are we seeing a change in government's risk appetite? And if any of my colleagues wish to jump in, feel free to do so. But the simple answer is actually yes, we are seeing a change. And I think the scope and the scale of this programme demonstrates government's willingness to take some risk. Because, as Julian really rightly pointed out, like, there has to be a case for intervention. And a big part of that is de-risking private investment. It's a big part of what they're doing. So yes, we might still need to know your inside leg measurement when you apply, but we hope it's proportionate to the scale of the funding that you are applying for. So the lower down the quantum of funding, hopefully the easier the application process is, but also the greater the risk that's willing to be taken, right? So for things like mobilize, you know, we're casting the net wide. We're looking for things which might be successful. By the time we get to transformation fund, yes, we want to help to minimize a level of risk, but we are looking for projects which are much closer to something which can be successful should that intervention or that case for intervention be met. So, Julian,
Yeah, I think on that specific point, I think there's a really good evidence base that there's quite a high degree of risk tolerance actually in the R&D space. But when you look at the capital side, actually, I think we're going to be quite focused. It's been quite risk averse, but we've learned some lessons in that process. And there are certain really key areas in the project, the target project portfolio, where frankly, we know we're going to have to take risks in order to get something to fill that spot. Right? So yeah, I'm going to pick one out of the air just as an example, active cathode material, where we've got massive level of underinvestment across the region. To the point where, frankly, businesses right the way across Europe are probably at risk of failing to comply with rule of origin from January 2027. So we will probably have a higher level of risk tolerance for projects in that spot than we might in something that's a bit more of a Me Too representative. But it'll be quite project specific when we're looking at the capital.
Can I add a couple of bits, Rick?
Yeah, of course, go for it.
I think what we're going to see, so what you will see is recurring across all the themes is the kind of things we're looking to assess are going to be the same themes, right? It's going to be the team, technology proposition, it's going to be the market that you're going to address, it's going to be a plan to address the market, it's going to be a plan to raise the finance or the budget you need to take the technology forward, and it's going to be the case for impact, and that's where the case for intervention comes in. Of course, we're taking a bit more risk at the front, at the lower end of the scale than we obviously go up. But it's not just about the level, it's about the types of risks that we take. And the reason I mention it is, you mentioned the inside leg measurement of the CEO. I mean, that's quite an interesting one because people risk is probably one of the ones where you want to be most sensitive on, right? Because it's great people, you need great people. It doesn't matter what stage of that journey you're at, you need to have great people driving that business. And taking a risk on people who haven't got the skills or the capacity to do it, you know, that's a really tough risk to take, right? You can take it, it might fit into the future, but technology risk, we'll take that every day. We'll take a bit of technology risk at the right point in that journey. We'll take that kind of risk every day, and that's what we're here to do. So I think it's not just about the quanta, it's about the type.
Rick, I'm getting the evil eye from Cami, who stuck her head through the door about curled up sandwich.
We don't want the pork pies to start to sweat, do we? So on that note, is there any final questions from anyone before we wrap up for lunch? Great. As I say, we're around for lunch and afterwards, should you want to have a conversation, you had any questions. I'd like to finish by thanking the APC team, the events team who have organised this in the background, and in particular our external speakers. So Paolo, Sarah, Tim, Charlie, thank you very much. Your messages really, I think, resonate with the audience. We appreciate your time. Thank you all for joining us. We hope it's been useful. I promise the sandwiches won't be that curled up and the pork pies won't be that sweaty. But stick around, come and have a bite, ask some questions, and we really look forward to supporting you on the journey in the future. Thank you very much.